Hello, welcome to Art and Yoga from Home. I'm Mary Murray, Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art at Munson Williams Proctor Arts Institute in Utica, New York. Thank you for joining us. I'll begin with a brief chat about a work of art in the museum's collection, a painting by Stephen Mueller, who lived between 1947 and 2011. He died, unfortunately, too soon from cancer. At 10:30, we begin yoga practice. If you're able, would you please make a donation, and that will help continue to support this program. Thank you. This week, beginning Sunday, May 24th, 2020, the United States hit a grim milestone. More than 100,000 people have died from the COVID-19 virus. And in the past 10 weeks, more than 40 million people have applied for unemployment. And now there are riots in Minneapolis because an African American man who was handcuffed and in police custody was killed by one of the police officers. It's a week that will challenge a person's foundational beliefs. And even if one is not directly affected by these tragedies, no man is an island. The bell tolls for all of us. We are all diminished by other people's suffering. So I ask, how does one go forward when I feel helpless? And I think there might be a balance between action and meditation. Some of you might call it prayer. Action can be as simple as wearing my mask in public in case I'm asymptomatic and I can prevent spreading the disease to someone else. And of course, reflection and meditation I can find here in this yoga practice. The artwork that I would like to talk about is by Stephen Mueller. He attended graduate school at Bennington College in the late 1960s and early 1970s at a time when it was a bastion of color field painting, sometimes also known as post-painterly abstraction. Imagine work by an artist like Helen Frankenthaler, if you're familiar with her paintings. Artists who are working in very formal properties of picture making, or painting, I should say. Form, color, in a very flat pictorial space, using the plane of the painting itself as the entire depth of the pictorial space. Now, Mueller, in the last decade or so of his life, introduced some quite wonderful pattern and vibrant colors, sometimes luminous. If you refer to the watercolor that is in the comments section here, there is a sensitivity to the medium and what it will do, so that the water medium sinks into or is absorbed by the paper to create a soft, almost fuzzy line. And it looks like those orange brush strokes are woven together. And he grounds that with a beautiful complementary rich blue, cobalt maybe, royal blue, and floating almost within the picture space are what might be prayer beads, because Stephen Mueller was very interested in spiritual traditions from India, Hindu and Buddhism in particular. And he incorporated forms from Buddhist shrines or mandalas, and interweaving Eastern spirituality and Western painting techniques. So the prayer beads that are floating within the space of the orange ground, I want to point out that the top group might look a little bit like chalky white, but in fact, in reality, are painted a quite lovely light blue. So there are some kind of colors associated with different types of religious or philosophical practices. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. If you look at his painting here titled Orfeo II, Orfeo referring to the Greek myth, there's a great tragic story of lost love between Orpheus and his wife Eurydice. But Orpheus was also the greatest musician of his time, Apollo being the greatest divine musician, I should say. His Orpheus's parents were supposed to have been Calliope, the muse, and Thracian king, but possibly also Apollo. And Apollo is said to have taught Orpheus how to play the lyre, Lyre. Orpheus is also supposed to have been on um, the journey with Jason and the Argonauts, and his music was so enchanting that it could still a stormy ocean. So, how is this story about sound manifested in color and shape in Stephen Mueller's painting? To the lower left corner, we see a vibrant, almost eye-popping contrast of colors. The sort of purple, red, and turquoise blue create visual throbbing. And at the center of the composition, Mueller does quite a bold move by making the form white. So actually leaving a void at the center, but he does define it slightly with that serpentine shape of striped colors. Then around this white form, there are radiating gradient shades of blue. And to my eye, these are like sound waves, and they are emphasized once again in the ovals of the complementary warm colors in orange and gold and rose tones. And those are painted in a similarly striped or graded way, which adds a great rhythm to the composition. So one has a feeling of maybe moving through a tunnel or of sound waves coming outward toward the viewer. And I'm also reminded of a painting by the great modernist American painter Arthur Dove. He did a composition titled Foghorns from 1929. I believe it's at the Colorado Springs Museum, and it has the similar kind of radiating effect. If we see that Stephen Mueller is uniting formal ideas of painting from the United States in the late 20th century and Eastern religious traditions and shapes. I would also to this like to add something from Kandinsky, the Russian at the center of one's spiritual experience of art. He said, color is a power which directly influences the soul. And about blue, he said, this color moves concentrically, which reminds me of this picture. It seems that it moves away from the viewer, a pure and immaterial color. Its sound resembles that of a flute, a cello, or an organ. So going forward, we will continue to find our better angels in each other, in our own behavior, one hopes, and we'll look toward practices that enable us to achieve those goals. And until next time, I wish you good health, good spirits. Namaste.